Good. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Well, everybody, welcome to the Wright County Board of Commissioners. It's March 16th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everybody. Nice to see all these smiling faces
Underneath the mask.
underneath the mask, but I'm sure they're smiling. Alrighty. Minutes from March 2nd.
I will move the minutes, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any other discussions regarding the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Review and approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything other than myself to add to the agenda?
I have nothing.
Okay. I would like, under items for consideration, discussion regarding Commissioner Ketchmark's suggestion to set up a meeting regarding future plowing and mowing contracts.
So under,
Said like a committee of the whole to discuss it, okay?
Yeah, we'll talk about it at that point.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition under items for consideration to just set a committee of the whole and discuss regarding mowing and plowing.
I'll second.
Yeah, items for consideration, C. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Wetter. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like removed for further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark.
number 4, letter E, please.
Or, you mean E, 1 or 2?
Letter E.
Just the letter E, 1 and 2, or just E, 1? Or both, E, both, 1
Okay,
and 2?
let me check.
Okay, no problem, I'm just curious. All right.
Number 2, number 2 under letter E.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Wetter. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion denied, 2 to 3. I'll take a new motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark?
this was a item that you chose to table from the last meeting agenda, so I'm kind of wondering where we're at with that when you tabled it. If that can be brought up as a separate item, or
It's on
what
the,
the plan is for
it's
that.
on the consent agenda. It's voted on who wants to pull it and who not. So it's a consent item, and this is a democracy. The ayes have. Majority rules.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for some clarification from that motion from the last meeting.
So I have a motion from,
I will second that.
motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, on to our timed agenda items.
I guessed.
Mr. Penske, I need you to come up here and state your name and information, please.
With my gear?
They'll,
Is it wireless? Yeah? Right
at
there.
the
at the podium.
Yep, and then speak into the microphone, please. They can, so people can hear you. There you go. Move it over a little bit.
Is it all right if I speak without my mask?
Yep, you're far away.
And so we're linked, but I'm not sure. So I'm Ruben Elijah Pensky. This is Rocket Blondie Shelley, the girl. And on the handout, you'll see her doing what she did when she came to me as a puppy. So she's going to be 13 years old, and as a puppy, she sat up like this in front of me. I have been reading Black Labrador Retrievers for...
Sir, I'm going to have you speak into the mic because otherwise people are
Okay, thank you.
online and won't be able to hear.
Very good, thank you. So I'll continue. Might be a browser issue to be able to go to my PowerPoint. So Rocket Blondie demonstrated to me that she has the ability to communicate. I'll go back around a bit. And I'd never seen a Labrador Retriever sit up like that on first introduction. Yes. And she still does this, believe it or not, at age 13. She was talking to me, this animated communication between canine and human. I've been raising labs since I've been a kid for hunting and trained to help guide people through in their life skill development, helping people heal through trauma. Master's degree. I started a nonprofit. I had this in this PowerPoint. I started a nonprofit called Creative Life Resources 40 years ago. And a toxic chemical injury plus torn body parts, you hear my larynx, when I rush or start early in the morning calling my dogs. I have 7 with me today. And I start getting like this. But the injuries I sustained, she's helped me through. Every day can be a fight for life because of this toxic chemical injury. Febreze, if this room is Febreze in, it would be kryptonite to me. So she is an alert dog, plus call it a sled dog of courage. And her ability to communicate has revived me, plus guided us to multiply like a farmer my seed. So I was stripped down by this adversity to my core person. And that's when a human can discover what they're really made of. And she's helped me discover that we have something valuable. So she has 2 daughters. They're out in the van. One's black, one's blonde, same age, same litter. And Labrador Retrievers, she can produce black. They can each produce blonde or black. So I walked in briefly, her granddaughter, who's 3 years old, and we had let me get to show you a couple photos. So Dakota had 12 puppies like this 3 years ago. And here's me with 4 of them, 4 that I pledged to Wright County to help disabled service heroes who are injured or the children. The service hero that has a disability. That could be military veteran, law enforcement, a ministry person like myself, and or their children if they're traumatized or injured. We're also launching through our other website, Pardon America Outpost. Our next batch of puppies will be dedicated, at least in part, to be sent out to, at 7 weeks old, to the children of heroes whose they don't have a dad or mom coming home from the field. Law enforcement or military, like we may be getting there. And I've called twice, if anybody wants to help me, to Police Chief Wendell Anderson in Tulsa. Sergeant Craig Johnson was gunned down at a traffic stop last July. So I called in August, offering my dogs to those 2 teenage boys. Didn't get a call back, hoping that somebody would communicate with the family. I called last week to reboot the communication. So that's some of what we do. You can our websites are on the page, or roverservicedogs.org, PardonAmerica.org. And so here we are. So I'm going to shorten this part and show you some photos. And my purpose here is to share this asset, this community asset.
Sir, I really need you to,
Thank you, thank you,
otherwise the people online can't hear.
thank you. So I'm here to share about this community resource asset, Rover Service Dogs. And my goal today, through an interactive service dog connection, this could be in a county park. It could be at one of your government centers, helping, reaching out and doing a vitality boost with our dogs to the staff at your centers. And then that's a footprint to connect with a disabled service hero who we might keep alive today. Or if we're in a county park doing this type of interactive outreach for a day, which we do, or we've been in front of Cub Foods here, we can help keep a veteran alive today just through interaction. So this roving service dog is something that we're pretty familiar with doing. So here's the Infund, the nonprofit. And I won't go into detail here because of time, but I have a lot of experience with breeding. And you'll see with some of the photos that I can put 2 British Labradors together, as well as the nurturing and know-how that I have to develop a puppy into a service dog that has an extraordinary communication, interactive intelligence. I call that a responsive intelligence genealogy. And the bundle of love factor, people walk up and they can see there's something unique or different about my dogs. I'll share a couple more details on that. And then one of my strengths is having a disability and using a dog and viewing the service dog world from the inside out. Many people in the service dog world are trainers, canine trainers, and are not disabled. Some might be. And very few have a total person health design training like myself. And so the human guide, the canine guide, is something that we have as an asset. So I mentioned being stripped down to my core person like a farmer, and we have multiplied. So here is Honey Lakota Nakota with her 12, and she's I call her my Panda Labrador. She's about this big, and she has a son out in the van that's this big, and he's a gentle giant. He's dark bronze. He has a brother that's white. We call him Polar Bear. And this is Sister Tasha. And 1 year later, Tasha had her six-pack, so this is 2 years ago, and 4 blacks and 2 blondes. One of her big black-head boys is helping in a middle school, and we've discovered that we can do this vitality boost, not just helping the counselor working with students, but teachers are coming out of their classroom to deal with their stress and taking a mental health break with Buck is his name. And we're just amazed at his ability to interact with people and tune into people as separate people, not a therapy dog, but as a service dog. And I can go into more detail of how he's helping students read, grow out of, move out of, transform out of some of their challenging behavior. And so this interactive service dog footprint through a school, we could go into one of the schools here in Annandale or Otsego and interact for a day with just the teachers. Now that becomes a footprint to reach a disabled veteran because of the ripple communication and connectivity. And so this, my own survival adventure has turned into this word I use, outpost, an interactive, connective network of connecting communities and assets. And I'd like to show you a couple more photos, and then I will focus on the county and wrap up. So here's the 3 of us. This must be about 4.5 years ago. And here's the picture on that poster. And these dogs Rovers are 3 years old now. And at this age, they all had names. And that has a lot to do with the interactive intelligence when they're called by name. And here's one of the veterans that we did the roving service dog connection. He was going to take Tasha as a permanent service dog, the black dog, but his wife wouldn't allow it. She's from a different culture. And so, and here's an elder World War II veteran with Rocket Blondie. And here's a Vietnam veteran. And a Vietnam veteran, Mark and Sue, with the white dog, Polar Bear. And Polar Bear started with them at 10 months and was there with them for a year. And then this is one of the 2-year-olds that was 3 months old at the time. So they have him now as their permanent service dog. And Polar Bear has come back to me. I'm going to stud him, plus make more puppies. You hear our outreach needs multiplication, and we need volunteers to do that. And then he will do some other placements, such as in a school. And then he could retire into a permanent, from the stud work, from the roving, into permanent placement. And so here's Tasha, the mom of the six-packs, doing one of her outreach sessions. And currently Tasha goes into the Franciscan Sisters in Little Falls every 2 weeks. And she knows, I'm not allowed in that building, but she knows how to do this interactive service dog work. And here's Rocket Blondie sitting, Nakota, and then the young dog I had in earlier, Mercedes. So here's when I was a young man.
Mr. Penske?
Breeding black labs. Okay. Thank you.
We're kind of running out of time. We have a lot of other things to discuss.
I appreciate the prompt.
So if I can get you to wrap it up, what you're asking for from the county?
Thank you very much for prompting me. Getting familiar up here is part of it, and then the setup. Otherwise, it would have streamed. Thank you. What I can benefit from the county is any way that you can communicate a value to what we can offer Wright County. We would like to have the opportunity to go to a couple county parks during the summer and set up, and I think his name is Chris, the director.
No, Mark.
Sorry, I
Tice.
met him 2 weeks ago. And so I had suggested this strategy to him. And so I wanted you to be aware of what we're doing and possibly for us to have the permission, if you will, or sanction to do this outreach in the county park. And also to the possibility, we travel now we have a mobility bus. So if we do this, it takes time and energy, and the possibility of, if we are parked in the county overnight, that there is some type of reference of who we are and what we are instead of being a stranger. I've started my relationship in this county by receiving chiropractic services, and believe it or not, I didn't get his picture up, but Martin Wood I met 2.5 years ago, and Tosh's puppies were born in his property here in Buffalo, those 6 puppies. So we have a stake in the county. And then any other interactive outreach guidance of places and people that this vitality boost and building this, call it networking footprint of the awareness of what we can offer, to place one of our dogs at no cost to a veteran, or at least to do some interactive work with a disabled veteran or their child.
Well, I would, what the park decides, how they want to handle it, it's up to them, and they have a lot of different programs that they're dealing with. And as far as our veterans, you could have a discussion with our veterans officer and see what his suggestions are. I know we do have a former veteran or a veteran that has a dog too, so.
I think I met him 2 weeks ago.
So anyway.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think it's a wonderful program. We'd probably have to have a deeper discussion about if you could stay, park overnight. I don't know, that would be kind of,
Well, in the
that would be
campgrounds
something
and
that,
stuff.
yeah, in the campgrounds. But, otherwise, we don't have necessarily overnight parking in our park, so,
Right.
not to be negative about that aspect of it, but, certainly if you have, like you said, have a discussion with our Parks Director and, find out what the kind of rules are, so, but,
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
Ruben, thank you for sharing all this information with us. I think staff and members of us can maybe see what we can do to help facilitate you offline. But I appreciate your time.
That's kind of
Thank
what I
you.
was looking for. To build a relationship. We've been in this county connecting for a while, especially with planting the seed here. It's kind of interesting. So, thank you.
Well, thank you,
So if I
sir.
remember doing this again, it will be streamlined. So thanks for all your help.
Yeah.
And for Liz helped a lot at getting the prints and stuff and getting us set up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can you say thank you, girl? Say thank you. She often does her prancing about that time. Thanks for your help too.
Are you able to get that off our?
I'll try to do it.
Miss O'Hare, where are you hiding? Yeah, you were hiding. We still caught you. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, Mr. Chair. Alicia O'Hare, Wright Soil and Water. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I have something far less exciting to talk about, our county water plans. Do I just turn the overhead on, Lisa? That would be the
Yes, is
best
it
way
lit up
to-
right now or no?
There we go, it's blue.
All right,
And
should come up
we can.
momentarily.
So, just a reminder for Wright County, we have 3 county water plans. Come out a little bit There we go. So we have 3 major watersheds in Wright County, and due to the Board of Water and Soil Resources is now planning on the major watershed scale instead of on the county scale. That's called the One Watershed, One Plan program. In Wright County, the North Fork Crow, which is this one in the middle, it is under a completed One Watershed, One Plan, and has, provided us over $250,000 in projects already. So it's a very beneficial program. The other 2 remaining watersheds, the Mississippi St. Cloud to the north and the South Fork Crow to the south, do not yet have One Watershed, One Plans, but our partners in both watersheds have decided to move forward and apply for a grant to begin planning those. So the items that I'd like to address today are to move forward with those aspects. So I'm just going to address the Mississippi St. Cloud first. The first thing we would like to do is change the proposed boundary on that watershed. So it was originally proposed here 2011 as a combined between 2 watersheds. This is the Sartell, and then we have the Mississippi St. Cloud, which includes Wright County. So the partners have discussed this among staff and some supervisors, that we split this among these 2 major watersheds for a couple of reasons. The first being that other planning efforts for water management have been done on those scales. They've been separate instead of combined, so we think it would be more consistent. It will limit our planning partners as well. There won't be as many counties involved, which is an efficiency system. And then the dramatic difference between the land uses between, Otsego here and at the outlet between the woods of Todd County. So we think that it will just make a better plan to separate it. So the first resolution that I would ask for the board is to support the boundary change to only do this blue area here, the Mississippi St. Cloud.
Commissioner Wetter, you're on the One Watershed, One Plan?
Yes, I am. And I also support that idea of splitting the 2, because you do have less people involved when you're making these decisions, and it's a lot easier, especially when you have essentially several people from each county involved. You've got the soil and water person, and you have a county commissioner. So it's much easier with less people to work with. The North Fork Crow was a lot of people, and more difficult to get some sort of connectivity in between everybody and what to do.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to support a Mississippi River St. Cloud split from the Sartell Mississippi River group.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion to support the resolution for boundary change.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Wetter, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Or the resolution, sorry. Commissioner Ketchmark.
Aye.
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 I didn't know if you want me to go out of order.
Yeah. Gonna shut my phone up. All right.
Then the next resolution regarding Mississippi St. Cloud is to support moving forward with the planning application.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to support a resolution supporting the planning application for the One Watershed, One Plan Mississippi.
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any other discussions? Commissioner Ketchmark?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then finally, for the Mississippi St. Cloud, we have one more thing for the South Fork, but we were told and informed that it would be beneficial for our application if we could identify a policy committee member now. This is just a potential person. You're not locked in, but they would like to know who from your board may represent Wright County on the policy committee.
Mr. Chair, I would volunteer unless somebody else.
No, I like the idea of having somebody that's consistent with all of them. So,
I was once told I was the water person, so.
You have far better knowledge on it than I
Yep.
do, so I will absolutely defer to you, and I think you'd be a great placement.
Yep.
all right,
I will make
so,
a motion to appoint Commissioner Wetter as the policy committee member for the Mississippi watershed.
I'll second that.
motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And thank you, I know a lot of the people involved already, so it's,
So we also need one
Good
for the
Yes.
South Fork then too?
Yes, the South Fork was the only watershed last year that did not get funding for the planning. They applied last year, so our resolution to move forward with the planning process still holds. But they would like a person for the policy committee. I did just put up the map too, if you want any reference on
Wetter,
the.
how busy do you want to be?
that's fine, I'll take it.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to appoint Commissioner Wetter as the policy committee member for the South Fork.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch. I don't know, Commissioner Houston, you need to be more for,
I tried, but, okay.
Commissioner Ketchmark seconded. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wetter,
Public
thank you
hearing now,
for,
Mr. Chair, it's 9:30.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll get out of your way and I'll let you know how it goes.
thanks,
Thank you.
Alyssa. Yep.
Subdivision.
Oh, 9:30 a.m., public hearing on ordinance amendment 21-2, amendment to the subdivision ordinance. I'm assuming Mr. Kaiser? Do we need to turn
I don't,
the overhead off?
something's,
Oh, there he,
Yeah, I
yeah,
see him there,
just a moment. There we
He
go.
was just there. Now, there you go.
There he is. Nice bow tie this morning.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does that one light up?
Mr. Chair, I can get right into it if you'd like here, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
What we have here is this is in follow-up to the recent change in duties between the Finance Department and our Recorder's Office. The Land Records Management Department it moved over to the Recorder's Office, and with that, we're trying to streamline the plating process. Currently in our subdivision ordinance, and this only requires to the unincorporated areas of the county, so all the townships, we have a signature block that currently states that the auditor treasurer does the certification for taxes. Staff is looking to change that. We originally noticed this as the recorder being the signatory on it, but in further discussion after it was published and notices sent out to the townships, staff is recommending that you proceed with Ordinance Amendment 21-2A, which would clarify it as land records. So with that, Mr. Chair, we can open this for a public hearing, unless you have any questions.
Anybody on the board have any questions? All right, we will open up the public hearing for anybody that has discussions on it. If you have something you want to talk about, I need you to come to the podium, state your name and address. So, is there anybody from the public that would like to talk about this? Is there anybody from the public that would like to talk about this? Anybody from the public that has any questions regarding it? All right. Since we don't have anybody, we will close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Vetch.
This is largely a housekeeping item, so I'm going to make a motion to approve Ordinance Amendment 21-2A for the change to land records.
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Is this a resolution or just a regular vote?
It's an ordinance amendment. If you want to do a roll call, wouldn't hurt.
Okay. Does anybody have any other discussions regarding this? up here? No?
I like to see that things are getting aligned better after all these years of, a lot of things got thrown into the auditor's office, and this makes more sense, so.
All right. We will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Ketchmark?
Aye.
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 That resolution or amendment carries. 5-1.
All right.
5-0.
Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Hewson? No.
Houseman.
Houseman, sorry. Chad, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Oh, there we go. Now we can see you.
Okay. So, I'm filling in for Virgil today. We've got 3 agenda items, and it's the fun stuff. It's that time of year for bid openings. So, my first agenda item is our seasonal overlay pavement preservation contract. Knife River Corporation of Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, as is the past few years, is the apparent low bidder. We received bids on March 4th, and we are recommending award of contract 21-01 to the low bidder Knife River of Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, in the amount of $7,287,860.38. This also includes an alternate bid for the Cold River Regional Trail paving for the Parks Department, and we are including the alternate bid in the summary is below of the project funding. Over $6 million in state aid funds, $911,000 in local levy, and the $323,000+ for the parks alternate bid. So these are all within budget range. The state aid was a little bit under, local levy was a little bit over. But we got good bids on the CD10 ditch project that we opened up that our share of, so that offsets any over on the local levy for the overlays. So things are looking good. So, any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to award contract number 2101 to Knife River Corporation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vance, second by Commissioner Hewson. Anybody, any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. The next one is our 2021 seal coat contract number 2102, awarding this to Allied Blacktop Company of Maple Grove, Minnesota. The bid opening was on March 4th again. It is recommended to award the low bid to Allied Blacktop Company, Maple Grove, in the amount of $535,945.15.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve contract 2102 to Allied Blacktop of Maple Grove in the amount of $535,945.15.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vance, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Great. Our final agenda item before you is the 2021 pavement marking contract to contract number 2103 to AAA Striping Service Company of St. Michael, Minnesota. Same March 4th bid opening in the amount of $419,800, and this is below our budget amount, but that gives us a little bit of leeway for all the extra striping emergencies that pop up throughout the year. So,
All right, can I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve contract number 2103 to AAA Striping of St. Michael.
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vance, second by Commissioner Houston. Any other discussions?
Nice when things come in under budget, Mr. Chair.
It is, that it is. Good job by the Highway Department.
Yep.
Thank you, Virgil and Chad.
all right.
No other
Thanks, guys.
discussion?
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. One thing I would like to ask is, when this gets put out on the website, if we could have the map on where these things are going to be occurring. As I didn't see that on here.
On the big map?
So,
Yes.
you know, when it goes out, just so that people know where the pavement preservation's going, where the seal coating's going, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we'll get those uploaded with any with our notices and award that our press releases and whatnot. So definitely.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Chad.
Yep. Thank you.
All righty. I think we're on for items for consideration. Commissioner Vetch, you had volunteered after I strong-armed you into doing the workshop minutes.
Mr. Chair, I love presenting minutes, so, you know, it's just my thing. So, last week on Tuesday, the March 9th, more than 2 handfuls of people, as you read there, I'm not gonna read off all the names, were present for the workshop. First item for discussion was the dental clinic. It was a discussion that was brought forward by community dental and staff in whether a general architect would be sufficient or if a architect versed in dental architect, I guess I didn't realize it was a specialty, but so the discussion kind of went around the difference between a general architect and a dental architect and the necessities that may be needed with a dental architect versus a general architect. So after much discussion, we made the, opened the option to look at pricing of 3 dental architects to see how that compares to a general architect and to get further information on the scope of work on general architects to bring back to the board for further discussion down the road. Second item that was discussed was the investment policy. Auditor Treasurer Bob Hevola presented the fund balances and a list of where the funds were at this time, and also showed us statements from UBS Investment Banking Company and giving us an illustration of our cash liquidity versus investments and where we are yielding at this point. Next item was our overview of the ditches. Matt Detchen, our ditch manager, came in and presented the chart and basically gave us a status update and presented the working documents that he uses within the county to show where we're at from redetermination of benefits, where we're at in terms of workload and repair requests, and where we're at for expenditures on each ditch. It was kind of more of a tutorial for us to understand the documents that he has available to us to answer questions to citizens on the ditches.
And a lot of this also, I believe, is on the ditch program we have.
Drainage DB, yes.
Drainage
Yep.
DB, which is on the county website.
Yes. And that was all informational. The next item the fourth item was the Justice Center virtual tour. Frank Petita did a wonderful job in putting together a virtual tour of the new Justice Center. So those people that haven't had the opportunity to physically get inside the building can actually go on the county website and see the interworkings of that facility at this time. There was some little recommendation for staff to make sure that all security pieces were met between the attorney's office and they were met between court services and the 10th Judicial Court to make sure that they were comfortable with the video. That was done, and the video has been live, I think, all week already. So the next item discussion was the clean car standard discussion. This was kind of more of a item that was brought forward from Minnesota Rural Caucuses, and wondering whether the state legislator would be able to weigh in on the clean car standards or if it would be a decision that would be made through the EPA or the MPCA. And we had a discussion that we would put send a letter in our support of wanting to have the legislator weigh in on this and not have this be an executive decision by the governor's cabinet. So the next item on the agenda was the Alina donation discussion, which largely surrounds the things that took place on February 9th and our willingness to want to partner with any entities that would be interested in any types of memorials, and whether it would be on county property or on other facilities in Buffalo, and how we can help facilitate with that to the best of our abilities. That was informational only. The seventh item that was brought forward was the letter or an email that I was received from the city of Clearwater looking to get a letter of support for a corridor study for County Roads 7 to 75. I know that we instructed Administrator Kelly to reach out to Virgil to get his consideration on that request for a letter of support and to look at seeing if it would be possible to get a letter of support from the Highway Department as well as from the County Board for such a study. And with that, after almost 3 hours, it was a great workshop. We adjourned at 11:42. Mr. Chair, with that, I'll make a motion to approve the workshop minutes from March 9th.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Wetter. Before any other discussions, did we hear back from Mr. Hawkins regarding the letter for Clearwater?
Yeah, we had some discussion on, it was midweek last week. We ended up kind of having some combined language to make sure that we got it to the right people. He thought it maybe went to a different source. So we ended up kind of consolidating language and planning to send one letter for all of us. So, and then also copy, of course, Clearwater and Justin Canas from Bolton Mink, who serves as their city engineer. So.
Okay. Is there any other discussions? Commissioner Houston?
Yeah, for the dental clinic, Karen from Community Dental Care did reach out to us and to kind of further discussion on the architects.
Yeah, and I believe they provided us 3, and the county was going to provide a couple more to get it out there for quotes.
Yeah, I could speak to that briefly. Community Dental did provide us the names of 3 firms. Staff also did some research and identified 7 others. So we have quite a few names at least. We haven't gotten proposals from all of those, but I've identified a bunch of potentials that have worked specifically in that dental area.
Mr. Chair, just a question, I guess when we get these bids back, in what form are we going to be able to discuss and look at this? I guess I'm kind of almost envisioning this, because it probably won't happen during a workshop time, just because the timing probably won't work on it. I guess whether it would happen in a committee of the whole, because I think there's a lot of discussion that I want to be able to have a deeper dive into it than to just be like, here's the numbers and pick one.
When do you expect the quotes to be in, or when we're going to have a cutoff on them?
So again, following today's motion, we'll move forward on getting quotes from folks. I guess that's one thing it's good to clarify. If you just wanted us to send out a letter of interest and see if they're interested, or if you wanted full quotes.
I'd letter of interest with pricing. I don't want to go out with an RFP because timing is of the essence.
Exactly.
To go with an RFP, we're going to take a lot of time.
Yep.
I would think that Community Dental would have some ideas on what they insist on being in the facility and how they want to do it, and I would think how they're going to set it up would be sufficient for a letter.
I agree.
All right. Anybody have any other discussions?
Well, I think our next item, I think I'd like to cover that maybe before we get too deep into the process after what we're talking about today.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second regarding the minutes from the workshop. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Item B, administration. New Government Center Level 0 space discussion. I believe, Commissioner Ketchmark, this is what you're referring to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this is a matter that came up a couple of weeks ago at a meeting, and from what I had read and heard, I thought that the process was moving right along, but I found out a couple of weeks ago that it really hasn't moved too far, so now I had to get involved, and I did some homework, research, talked to Mr. Kelly, had a conversation with other Wright County employees involved. I talked to comprehensive dental clinic personnel. I talked to other dental clinics in the area and outside the Wright County area. And just to go back from 2 weeks ago, I wanted to go back to where this started. So when the building was going up, Soil and Water initially was going to occupy all or part of the 6,200 square foot space in the basement of the county administration building, but that didn't materialize. And I don't know what part of that they were going to occupy. But after that, the board started talking about the dental clinic plan, And according to Comprehensive Dental Clinic, the first meeting that they had regarding that proposal was in September of 2018. Since then, we heard that there were many meetings between the facilities coordinator, Wright County, and Comprehensive Dental, and discussion with an architect. There was a cost initially proposed of $2.4 million for the building and equipping the building, and a possibility of grants up to $1.5 million, but that will be an application process, so it's not guaranteed where that money would come from, what type of grants, or if there would be any more, which would leave about $1 million according to the initial price that we were given. And there was interest in the last meeting in going with the existing contractor out there because of a cost savings with moving contractors down right to that project. They were already on site, but we found that that deal basically is going out the window because of the time frame that it's taken, and those folks are leaving. So we're basically at square one. I started talking to other dental providers to see who else did this kind of service. Comprehensive Dental Clinic said they'll accept any kind of patients with insurance, like county insurance, no insurance, underinsurance. They'll take anybody, but 82% of their patients are the uninsured, underinsured, or on state aid. Otherwise, I found other providers that provide the service. There's one chain that has 7 clinics that does the same thing. There's a mobile clinic that comes to Buffalo once a month to perform dental service. If they can't handle it in that mobile clinic, they refer them to their clinic in Hennepin County. So the financial part is unknown with $1 million potentially in money that we don't know where it'll come from. I inquired about a contract. There's been no contract, no terms. Typically CDC, Comprehensive Dental Clinic, says they look for a 10-year contract, but there hasn't been any operating expenses talked about or a lease agreement. Their clinic in Maplewood currently services 63 of 87 counties in Minnesota. This process basically began 2.5 years ago, and at this point, I would not support pursuing the dental clinic any further. I think the most fiscally responsible thing that we would do now would be to leave that space, bring it up to code according to the building code at a minimum until a better proposal comes along. Otherwise, this seems like a bad business deal for Wright County.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Vetch.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your motion, Wendy. Because if you're motioning to table it to search for other providers, I'd be willing to support that. Now, if you're tabling it indefinitely, you would probably kill our chances of ever getting bonding in Wright County ever again from the legislator, because that would be a huge slap in the face if you're saying don't ever do it. So I wouldn't support that. Now, do I think community dental is the perfect partner for us? I have my concerns, and I'm willing to put a pause on that and look for or open up a request for information, an RFQ for other providers for that space. I'm open to that discussion because I don't know, Commissioner Kaczmarek, on what you have experienced in people that, whether you're a foster kid or a individual that is 70 years old and don't have a dental insurance, you right now are traveling, because I know firsthand that I've traveled upwards of 40 minutes to try and find people that will take MA dental insurance, because it's just that sparse. And you will take, if your kid has a toothache, you'll have to wait 3-4 days to get into one of those places to even get them seen. And that's just wrong. So there is a need for it, and I mean, the legislators seen the need for it, because this facility is servicing multiple counties, because there is a dead space here between St. Cloud, doesn't have any, so there's a need. This legislator funded it, and we're literally, I know you're talking about $1 million shortfall on it, but that $2.4 million, you add the legislator's money in it, and there always has been roughly about a $500,000 commitment through donations, which brings us upwards to the $2 million mark. Now, you have to understand the reason we put $2.4 million into it is because we had to quantify the actual walls and space of the building, which the walls and the space of the building is already there. So, but we had to quantify what it would have been if it was a standalone versus it was in the basement. That's our contribution to the facility, is giving them the walls and the space on the outside of it. That's what makes the total cost of the $2.4 million. So our money, the county's money is already in that building, whether we build it or not, because the walls and that space is already there. So we're not putting any more physical county dollars into it at this point. The only thing, if you don't do it, is you're not utilizing the bonding money from the state or the donated money from the Delta Dental and the other nonprofits that want to contribute towards this facility.
Mr. Chair, can I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
So that, my understanding is that 1.5 billion or million that can be applied for, it's on the table for 5 years. And like I said, I did some research and found there are other options, including in the city of Buffalo. I went to my own dental clinic in the county last week, and they said they take 4 of these appointments per month, and it's a personal preference on the private clinics, as I understand it. And so there are other places, and we can't guarantee every service in Wright County is in Wright County. Sometimes you have to drive for other services, but there are other options. I found that. This project is 2.5 years in the making, and if it was that necessary and needed, it seems like it should have been further along by now, and now is a good time to stop and take a look, and that would be my motion, would be to just decline pursuing that any further until a better option for the space comes along.
And that better option would be a different dental clinic, or soil and water, or jumping jack area?
A better proposal other than a dental clinic.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wetter?
Soil and Water would not want to go there for the simple reason that they like to be close to FSA. That's a federal group, and the reason why the SWCD did not want to go, they want to stay together, and a federal group could not go into a county group, and exist there. So that was the reasoning behind the SWCD. When it got offered to us, we never even thought about going, because we didn't want a agricultural person to have to go to a place across the county or across the city and then go to another place and another place to get all their work done. So that's why they like to coexist together.
Okay. Commissioner Houston?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was a bipartisan approval at the legislative level, because they recognize all the people that are ending up in the emergency rooms. I mean, I wish I had those numbers in front of me now, because I can't remember, but just in the 2 hospitals in Wright County, we had a large number of people that end up in the emergency room for dental reasons. So they get, treated there, and then they have to find a dental provider. Since there's only 2 in the county that take MA, it's very limiting for people. And like you said, your dentist, it's nice if they take, 4 MA people whenever they can.
A month.
And
there's a lot more people.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's just
not
it.
very
And it's this is not Wright County's dental clinic. We're leasing this space for people, or to a provider, whether it be community dental care or another one. And I mean, this was not just a slam dunk way back when we had these meetings with community dental care, and just to recognize all the people that are not being served. I mean, these community dental care is going to be leasing this space. They're building it out. They're paying for that. So this isn't something that we're doing, like Commissioner Vetch said. We have this space. So, who are we going to lease it to? I haven't had anybody we haven't heard from anybody else that's interested in leasing the space, but I guess that's my take on it.
Commissioner Vetch?
I just want to point out that I know you said that there's a place in Buffalo that takes MA. It does take MA, but it does not treat kids 12 and older. It only does youth 11 and younger, and that is the extent of their treatment. Is there options for younger youth? Yes, but that is one place in the county. Otherwise, all the other ones are on a very, very limited basis. And you basically can call, and because I've called around, and you're not going to find any in the Monticello area that are taking, or even the Buffalo area, on those 4 appointments. If you're lucky to get one of those spots, they're not taking new MA patients.
Sarah or Jamie, are either of you on the on here with us this morning? Sarah, Jamie? Guess not.
And Mr. Chair, I mean, I applaud. I wish everybody had a good job and everybody had dental insurance. And don't get me wrong. I mean, we all want that for everybody. We want everybody to be productive, but unfortunately that's not the case. And my biggest thing is about the people that don't have a choice in here. And it's a lot of it. We're talking about kids that were born into circumstances that just aren't, it's just not fair. It's wrong. And to basically let them go either untreated or to put them through days of agonizing pain, or while they're through days of agonizing pain, they have to drive exuberant distances. That's just not fair. That's not right, and that is why we're doing what we're doing.
And Mr. Chair, it's not just for children either. It's
No.
for, older people too. And people are in different circumstances. A lot of people don't drive. They need to get rides to these places. And, as our chair said, he had to, drive somebody down to St. Paul. And when I talked to my dentist about this and to let him know this proposal, he was really happy to know that people that they aren't able to treat, they can't afford to treat because they're not reimbursed. It costs them money to treat MA, the way the payments are set up. And he was happy that there would be a place that they could refer people to, so.
But it's still cheaper for us, instead of having this person with this really bad toothache going to the emergency room. They treat the pain at the cost of $500 to $1,000 in the emergency room, which they bill to MA, and then they send them to the dental person the next day to get the tooth pulled, and they bill another $200 to MA, where they could just altogether, if it's accessibility close to home, they can send them right to the dental and skip the whole government paying an emergency room visit to $500 to $1,000. Now that's a waste of money. And it happens all the time. It was amazing when we see the numbers of how many
I
people.
can't remember how many hundreds. I mean, it was a large number.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wetter?
I think the problem out here is the perception of the public not knowing actually why the county would have a dental clinic within their building. And until I got here in this position and asked Mr. Kelly many questions, which he answered very, very well, I didn't understand the background, that this was for medical, for patients that were needed that type of help. And so I think really it's the public's perception that why is a dental clinic in a governmental building? And I don't think that word is out there well enough. I mean, since I've learned all this stuff, I've changed my opinion, because I think I was a lot with Commissioner Catchmark on why a dental clinic in a government building, but my mind has changed now, because there is a need for patients that can't afford it. I know as a farmer, I did not have dental insurance. And so, yeah, through the years, I've paid plenty, but I could afford it. But I can understand where there's a lot of people that can't afford it. And so I know my particular dentist has a plan where you can like buy in and then get a certain percentage off. You get the x-rays and that twice a year, and then you get a certain percentage off if there's certain other work to be done. But I think it's really the perception out there of a dental clinic in
Yeah,
the county.
Well, we've been trying to get it out there. Sarah, you're with us now.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am. Sounds like I might, are there questions that I can answer? I missed part of the conversation. I apologize. We have a clinic this morning.
Mr. Chair, did he have a motion on the floor?
Did you?
No, I just was given my
He was
thought
gonna-
before we had
okay.
more
Okay,
discussion.
sure, okay, I just
Okay.
want to make sure there wasn't a motion, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah, Commissioner Ketchmark has concerns about community dental and also doesn't think we should proceed with the dental clinic. We were trying to explain to him all the emergency room visits that are happening because of dental issues. I don't know if you have those numbers available, but I know that the group from the Public Health Task Force did a lot of research along with the nurses from St. Cloud State doing a survey of all of our local dentists in Wright County. I'm assuming you're looking stuff up right now?
Oh, I'm muted. Excuse me. Correct. I'm pulling up the flyer that we use to talk about the dental needs in Wright County that has a good synopsis of many data points, including the emergency room visits, the number of dentists that we surveyed, the results of that survey. Just give me one more second. I can screen share it.
And then I would also suggest that you send that to Commissioner Ketchmark and Commissioner Wetter. Actually, send it to all of us again. I know I did see it at one time, a couple of times. But it probably wouldn't hurt to send it to all of us again for review.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair,
Just about to screen share.
okay. Are you going to go through this, or?
Can you see my screen?
So, Mr. Chair, I guess, because this is an informational item, I mean, at this point, because, I mean, unless Commissioner Ketchmark wants to make a motion for it, to make any type of changes, I mean, I'm open if we want to set a committee of the whole and dive into whether community dental is the right person or not. I'm open to having that discussion, but,
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair,
To,
to decline pursuing a dental clinic in the county administration building.
all right, do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? I do not have a second, motion fails. Sarah, you want to quickly go over this?
Sure, I'm happy to. So I can send this along as mentioned as well. We're actually in the process of adding some additional data to this, especially we have some additional emergency data from both of our hospitals, as well as updating some impact of COVID-19 to dental access. So this is pre-COVID-19, so just realize that probably additional, based on the numbers of unemployment, the increased Medicaid applications, that we would anticipate additional folks would be looking for this research in our region. So this 14,000 number was from 2019. So again, I think we're up to about 2,000 or 20,000 now in Wright County that are eligible for Minnesota healthcare programs. Those would be your Medicaid programs. People who have Medicare and Medicaid, so dual eligible individuals. These are the ones that aren't carried by our current providers. In addition, unless you have a supplemental plan, if you're on Medicare, you do not receive a dental benefit, and those people would be paying out of pocket. So community dental also provides a sliding fee and has grant programs available to individuals who cannot pay. So it's also not just a resource for our families, but also for our seniors in our community, many of who I'm sure you know live on a fixed income. So less than half of our dental providers accept clients with Minnesota healthcare programs, and 84% of them said the biggest barrier to accepting them was inadequate funding or compensation for services. You can see that the state at that time ranked 47 out of 50 for reimbursement for children and adults needing dental care. As I think I said 30 cents on the dollar, so here this is 31 cents on the dollar of the reimbursement rate, so they're taking it as a loss. I know Commissioner Houston last week shared some of her experiences speaking with her dentist, other community dentists that we've talked to. When they do offer Medicaid clients, they try to reach specific populations, and they're basically, they deem that as the charity care or their service to the community, but they're not able to accept these 20,000 individuals that we're talking about. So between 2015 and 2018, as I mentioned, we're updating this with 2019 numbers. Each of our hospitals saw over 900 individuals for emergency department visits due to untreated dental problems. I think it's important to note that there is not a treatment in the emergency room for dental disease. So if someone needs, if they have an infection, an abscess, they're treated with two routes, basically an antibiotic and a painkiller. And in fact, there's a lot of overlap between our work on opioid prevention and the dental community. Because of the lack of dental access, they're often, that Band-Aid can sometimes be a gateway to drugs. It also can be a way to sometimes use drug-seeking behavior at an emergency room. So dental diversion is very important. Each visit is about $749 on average for this dental emergency. And these people are often uninsured or underinsured, so they're not, the hospital is also taking a loss. If I remember correctly, at one point CenterCare determined for one of the years that each of those visits was over $1,000 in uncompensated costs that they were going to have to write off. And there's some, so dental disease also relates, this is some other information about why we want to have preventative and restorative dental care. Obviously, we can see that it's a big morale booster, right? So if your teeth don't look good, it can impact people's self-confidence. It can even impact how they are perceived by other people. So if they're out looking for jobs and they aren't comfortable with their teeth, we can see that actually untreated dental disease can impact birth outcomes because of chronic inflammation and a chronic infection. And we also see similar rates. You can see 655,000 children in Minnesota are enrolled in Medicare, and only 36% actually had their dental services received in a year. We have that data for Wright County. We can update that as well. And then this is a big reason why kids miss school. And then in addition, we have no school-based programs right now in Wright County. So partnership would be to provide additional programming throughout the school programs as well. Many of our schools to the north and into the metro are served by dental providers. We do not have a single school providing this resource yet. So this is, I have several other pieces of information that I am happy to forward on to the board related to the dental clinic from our work in 2019 and 2020 with both our partnership with Community Dental. As Karen mentioned, we were looking at facilities in the county to begin their work on fundraising and locations. In fact, at the time it would have been Dwayne, and then Jolene is now with us, but working with realtors, looking for locations until the facility space in the government center became available. I think you heard from Karen, as well as from Sue, that part of the bonding is to ensure that the clinic is sustainable, and part of being within the government center is the ability to have a lease that isn't impacted by, because they're a nonprofit, they are tax exempt, and they were concerned about other spaces if they don't own it and they rent and the landlord is impacted by increasing property taxes, for instance, that they would have to bear that cost even though they're a nonprofit. So those are some of the conversations that have occurred prior to this year's conversations about the government center.
Yeah, Sarah, I would suggest forwarding all that information again to the board.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions for Sarah? All right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate you just jumping on real quick. All right, item 2. Schedule committee of the whole to discuss school resource officer contracts.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I can speak to that. Had some discussions with various people in the sheriff's office. The schools have reached out and asked if we could reconsider the school resource officer contracts for the upcoming school year. So thought it would be prudent to schedule a committee of the whole in the upcoming weeks to address that prior to their working on their budgets for the upcoming school year. So
I'm not sure we need to do a committee of the whole unless there's a lot of questions on this at all, but we all know the school districts in Wright County have, the funding from the state level is not correct. It's not fair. We know that all the schools are taking a hit as far as funding goes this year especially, or next year. I know St. Michael alone is going to be laying off, I think they said 40 teachers or 40 school staff. I think a lot of them was teachers, is my understanding. Do we need a committee of the whole, or can we just, they were wanting it just for 1 year, I believe? Just and it was to freeze it, if we all read the letter that we received.
Yep.
It's just to freeze it for the 1 year.
Yep.
And I don't know how much of a budget implication it is. It isn't all that much.
It's $5,000 per school.
Per
so
school.
What is it, like eight or 9 SROs, like 45,000?
But there's 12
There's
SROs.
12. So yeah. So $60,000. You know.
And we are receiving some additional COVID-19 funding that we can utilize for that purpose too.
We could.
So the board, do you want to have a committee of the whole, or do you want to just let it go at this point and freeze it for a year?
I'm okay with freezing it for a year.
Commissioner Ketchmark?
I'm just looking at the letter here now, and they were kicking around 1 year. What I see here is for the next 2 years, just for clarification.
2 years? Okay.
And that was because I've talked with some of the superintendents, and the deciding side, the idea was, do we have to have a discussion where we freeze it this year and maybe go only 50% of that 5,000, maybe in next year go 2,500, and then they absorb in year 3 they absorb the full 5,000, because they have to eventually get there because we have to actualize some of the
Right.
real cost to it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the discussion that if we freeze it and then you absorb the whole full 5,000, or would it be easier just to taper into it?
Yeah, it says freeze it at the current rate of 43,764 for 2 years. Then I see after next year it would go up 20,000, if this is correct, from 49 to 69,000 in 2023, 24. And I don't know anything else about that other proposal that could come down the line, but.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ketchmark, we were raising their rates to get, more of our true cost. So I'm open to freezing, at least for 1 year. Their budget times, they do planning a little differently than we do. So I don't know if 2 years is more realistic for.
Well, I I would say, I know of already almost a handful of the school districts that are contemplating a referendum this year. So, and the side of the matter is that this, we have a lot of the CARES funding that.
We can use to offset
we could-
it.
We just did that, yep, that was basically that paid back other expenses that kind of.
So, board, motion? For
Mr.
committee of the
Chair,
whole or to move this along?
I guess it's the fact of the matter, I mean, I know I had some conversations with the sheriff, and I mean, the reason why I was leaning towards the committee of the whole is just to at least get his feedback, because I know you have to have the discussion with SRO contracts, because when you subsidize it heavy by the county, the communities like Annandale and Buffalo and Howard Lake, Waverly lose out because they're using their local municipality to do their SROs, and they're paying using county dollars to keep that SRO contract low. So we have to be, cognizant of that, and that's where we want to always make sure that those contracts are real to what our costs are to have those individuals in those schools. But I do understand that if we need to give them a little bit more time to get there, I mean, that's a fair request. Is that 1 year, is that 2 years? I don't know.
So, committee of the whole, or do we move this along for a 1-year freeze now?
We could go 1 year at a time.
My recommendation would be maybe 1 year if we move forward, but.
We can always revisit it and see what the climate of the, because we don't know what the legislator will come out for funding for schools, because there's still been a lot of talk at the federal level and the state level in trying to get some of these schools funded more correctly due to the pandemic. And that money has never yet come to true fruition yet.
Right.
So I'm in favor, and I'll make a motion to hold the contracts off for the increase in the contract for 1 year, and we'll revisit it when we find out what the school environment looks like at that time.
And I'll second that, and also add with enrollment down, we don't know what it's gonna be like going forward, but it's certainly with enrollment down in all the schools for this year, it's, that it's a larger picture that we're probably gonna have to face that.
All right,
Point.
so we have a motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsome to freeze the school resource officers for a year and discuss it more when we find out what feds and the states are going to be doing as far as financing.
Freeze the contract rate for them.
Right.
No, I'm sorry.
We're not freezing the
Freezing the contract rate for 1 year.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Department budget review. Who's on deck this year, this week? Commissioner Ketchmark.
Mr. Chair. IT, Mr. Fomby.
Leave me alone.
Somebody was sleeping. I'll leave you.
I'm with him.
Morning, Mr. Fomby.
Sir.
And we spoke, well, I think last week a little bit in my office, cameo appearance, and I appreciated that. And so back to what we're doing with the budget review is going back to 2020, where we had the lengthy report and things that draw attention, have questions, just looking for an explanation. And this week is IT, and it's no particular order or interest as to why you're here. We're just kind of going through the list, who's available, that kind of thing. But so this week is overtime, and it looks like your department was budgeted $21,000, and price that was spent on overtime was $73,885.27. So I had a report printed here of 18 employees in the department. 5 of those made between $4,000 and $8,000. One full-time employee made $33,369.10. And there was some reference made to a specific project that all or some of these folks were working on. One question I would have if any of these folks are admin or supervisors.
No, none are supervisors.
Okay.
We are unfortunately not authorized overtime.
Okay, and
I'd
then.
like to change that.
Yeah.
And then another would be, can you flex the start time since you had said that this special project requires hours worked after business hours in this building, right?
Well, the special project in question requires a lot of extraneous work. But in the IT department, the problem we have is that to do a lot of the work we have to do requires us to be on the network. And if we were to do it during the day, it would take the entire network down for the whole county, which means 850 people wouldn't work. It would be dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. So we'd rather avoid that. We can flex, and to an extent we do try to do that. The problem is we are such a small and specialized shop. I need people here during the day to deal with the various problems that pop up, and then we have other projects to work on. A lot of that, for example, we did 2 major projects that required us to work weekends. So we'd work Saturday and Sunday all day long to get some things upgraded and get some things moved, and the end result of that is that we do run up some overtime. At the end of the day, our personnel budget, we are $183,036.54 under for personnel. But it is just the nature of IT that there are times we have to work late. There are other counties adjacent to us that I will remain unnamed who actually have 24/7 shifts, and they actually take care of the stuff after hours with their normal people. We will get there. I'd say we'd probably start getting there in another 15 years. But for right now, we're just trying to maintain ourselves, slim and trim and agile.
So on a typical day, did these folks come in early or stay late? Or you mentioned sometimes they work weekends. What was the typical length of a day?
Just depending on what actually is going on. For example, if we have to patch servers, that's going to require us to take the servers offline to patch them temporarily. So that would take down the entire county. So sometimes people will stay late, sometimes they'll come in early. We have a very small and specialized shop. We are working to cross-pollinate talent so that we have multiple people that have the same skill set. But I got to take this off. This is irritating. But for a lot of our people, for example, we have one audiovisual specialist. We have other people, as indicated, who can fill in when needed, but we have one specialist. So if there's something going on, I need that specialist here during the day because that's when the court services are here. If that individual also has to work on a project and take that audiovisual equipment down, they would also need to be late at night. I have made it a policy to allow flex time where possible, but sometimes it's just not possible.
Yeah, thank you. So do they have to be in the building or can they do this work remote?
Oh, a lot of it can be done remote, but we're still paying them for the work they're done, whether it's remote or here.
And just for reference, a full-time job is 2,080 hours and this one person had 600, which is like 30% towards another full-time. I'm just wondering, are we looking out for their mental health and welfare? Is this voluntary? Or how much are we pressing this one person?
On that particular individual, we have actually looked at potentially bringing in somebody to support. The problem is he maintains all the institutional knowledge of the project. He's also filling in many capacities for the project manager on the vendor side of the house as well. His hours, he is meticulous about recording his time, and his hours are well documented. The one thing I am concerned about him is the mental health issue, and he and I speak regularly about that. He's doing okay, but I think what we're getting is more bang for our buck than we would if we were to possibly outsource to a contractor or something else. So right now, we're getting more for our money by following this current process than if we tried to add more bodies at the end.
Now, going forward, how long is this project expected to last and maybe this current rate of
I believe that one's going to be wrapping up around the December timeframe. So hopefully that'll taper off a little bit. And some of the problems we had, like some of the other individuals on there were filling in for people who left the county, and so we had to have somebody step in to do some extra work. So in that case, I would expect it to somewhat slim down. But just by nature of our employment and by nature of what we have to do, we will have to go into some overtime.
And I brought up at the one personnel committee meeting, you weren't there, but someone stood in to ask for a request for a senior.
Yes, we just hired a senior developer.
So what I brought up to that person is hopefully, and then that was before I saw this report, that we're getting folks doing the heavy lifting that we need at this level also that can help with that rather than a lot on the top end if possible.
Well, there's a saying we used to have in the Navy, choose your rate, choose your fate. If you were a torpedo man, and you were a cook, when they loaded torpedoes, the cooks didn't do a whole heck of a lot. When we loaded stores, the torpedo men didn't do a heck of a lot. Some of the people we have working on the ground here, for example, are TSSs. There's not a lot of after-hours work for them to do. There is occasionally somebody will call in, need a password reset, things of that nature. But for like some of the large project work, databases, servers, those individuals are higher paid because it's a more specific skill set, and we're competing with the general economy. Right now, I'd say that we are across the board well underpaid according to the economic forecasts, but there are benefits to being here. We have some great leadership, and I think I appreciate that. But that will require the more senior paid individuals to work late at night because it's more specific and more detailed skill set that requires a more experienced hire. So sometimes that is just the nature of the beast.
And thank you for the explanation. Just to wrap up, and I want to compliment you and your group, especially during the day. I'm here most days, and there's a quick response, even though if you have a skeleton crew over there, the response time is much appreciated.
If you are possibly recommending hiring 9 or 10 other people, I could easily take those.
I missed that recommendation, but okay.
Oh, okay. If you'd like to make a motion, I'm just throwing it out there.
But, and some more feedback from the constituents, they think this time and effort is very well spent by these department office heads coming forward and asking these questions that are not answered in a 132-page budget report. So thank you again.
Anytime. I'll be here all week. Tip your waitress.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Vetch?
Matthew, because we've had a lot of discussions in the past about contractors versus the overtime, and I want to illustrate for the public as well as any board members that, I mean, we found that it is far better for us to have to pay some overtime than the contractor rates are so extraordinarily high. And I think,
Yes.
I just wanted you to speak a little bit to that, so.
So, for example, a position that we might pay $80,000 a year for, which incidentally would go for about 100 to 120 in the civilian world, we would pay a contractor about 120. So what we would pay for in contracting is the maximum level in the civilian world, which incidentally does not go to the individual. The individual actually makes far less than that. The contracting company takes a very healthy cut off the top. So, but that being said, dipping into overtime is far more cost effective than anything else we could do. And if you'll note, I mean, for the entire year, if we remove the one person working on the very specific special project, we spent about $35,000 on overtime. $35,000 is literally like half, a full-time employee, which we're going to get more bang for our buck by doing that in-house than we would if we were to bring somebody else in or if we tried to hire an additional
And
person.
Mr. Chair, also to point out with the contractors that you don't have the ability to use the term other duties as assigned. The scope of their work is very narrow, and we don't have the ability, if they were here to do X project, they can only do X project. Even if they're talented in these other areas, we can't utilize them for these other areas.
And once they walk out the door, any institutional knowledge they get is gone. So it's better to develop our people in-house and spend a little bit more on the side.
And Mr. Chair, we have spent a lot of money on contractors over the years because we had to. We didn't have the people in-house. So, I mean, we really appreciate, your leadership in.
And part of our IT strategy is to get good at what we do. We
Yep.
do the day-to-day stuff. I want to be able to handle 80 to 85% of what we need. And for that other 15%, I'll go get the contractor. But we handle our day-to-day, and then we'll reach out where necessary. But as we grow, that 85 will creep up to 90, to 93, to 95, and eventually we'll be handling everything.
Regarding that, the one person you're talking about with the extreme amount of overtime, it's for a specific project, which is considered called ERP, which is our Enterprise Resource Planning. And the whole advantage of this system is to make things simpler, to eliminate duplication and triplication and quadruplication in some cases for departments where the same information is inputted by 4 different people. So we are trying to get the county up into the 19th century from where we are right now. So we're slowly moving up there. In order to get there, it's going to take some money, but it will save money in the long run. Administrator Kelly, you also agree with that we should have this all pretty much wrapped up by December timeframe?
Yeah, we're planning a decision on a go, no-go for the first rollout here in June, and then the second rollout would be December of '21. So planning this will be wrapped up at the end of this year, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right.
Did you have another department too, or just the
No,
one?
that was it today.
All right. Thank you, Matthew.
Yes, sir.
Item number 4, state and local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, of course, you've probably seen in the news this American Rescue Plan has made it through House, Senate, and the President has now signed. So several agencies are working on interpreting what that 242-page document all includes and what it means for the county. So raising it today, just to kind of have a high-level discussion, knowing there will be some more guidance coming, but we've had some various discussions, I know at the staff level on, we've done with past rounds of funding, some business stimulus. We've talked at times about doing projects such as broadband has come up in discussion. So kind of opening the floor, knowing what we know now. These funds, there's $65.1 billion that's going to counties. So the first of that will come to us within 60 days. And then the second batch that we will be allocated will be a year from now. So starting at staff level to do some planning on how we want to move forward with this, but thought it'd be a good opportunity to get some input from the board on what kind of things you may want us to pursue. So,
And Mr. Chair, I think I'd like to do this in a committee of the whole and wait about a week because there's going to be a lot of information that's going to come out in the next 7 days. And I think if we can sit down with it, because it's going to be, we're going to have to develop kind of a larger scope on how we would utilize these funds because,
You're being optimistic that all that information will be done in a week.
well, you're
Since
going
they're
to.
still working on some of the stuff from the original CARES Act.
Yeah, but, they're gonna give us, I mean, we'll have some general guidance, and then at that point, we can at least develop, 5 targeted areas. And I think that's what we can talk about, at least kind of figure out 5 different areas that we wanna maybe go after.
Yep.
Whether it's infrastructure, relief, things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Mr. Chair, I had a community reach out to me approach me about if there's money coming, broadband, so that's,
Yeah.
And that's where I think, we'll have those discussions, whether we look at different municipal infrastructure, broadband, and, I mean, there's so many different areas, and a lot of it's getting that interpretation of what we're going to be allowed to
Right.
utilize it for.
yep.
All right, so what date are you suggesting? You're saying a week. Do we have availability for after the board meeting next week on the 23rd?
Yeah,
I'm available.
I'm available.
that work.
Commissioner Wetter, Commissioner
I don't know, I
Ketchmark?
haven't checked yet.
Looks good.
10:30, 11?
Yeah, we'll go with 10:30
Okay.
and,
Yeah, 23rd works.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee.
wait a minute. Is that okay? Oh, you did say it was all right? It was Commissioner Wetter that we were
Yeah,
still waiting on.
it's
She
fine.
said.
Okay.
It's open.
I will make a motion to set a committee of the whole for 10:30 on March 23rd to discuss the new funding.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsome, second by Commissioner Batch. Is there any other discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Okay. Regarding the item I added, for the plowing and mowing contracts, this touches a number of different departments for dealing with this stuff. So Commissioner Ketchmark had the good idea that since we're going to be on the same campus to look at this. We used to do it, and it was found to be more cost-effective with all the different areas we had to contract it out. But now that we'll be on one location, it may be beneficial to look at this again. I'd like to do it as a committee of the whole. Commissioner Ketchmark was going to do it himself, and then it still would have to come back to a committee of the whole for discussion because the board needs to make that decision. Since there's a lot of departments that this touches on, some are on vacation, some are taking vacations, I would like to say maybe we can do this sometime mid-April.
We added
To
it.
give everybody a chance to get those numbers together, because we'll need parks, we'll need highway, we'll need facilities. I don't know who else we'll need, whoever does our contracts. But suggestions, Mr. Kelly?
Workshop.
Well, if you're looking into April, I mean, easiest is probably to pick either after a board meeting on a Tuesday, or you could consider the workshop on the 13th, following that as well.
Or in the workshop itself,
Yeah.
depending on
Options.
what we have, for that. So, I mean, we don't have to address it today for a specific date. I'm just thinking because of the people that or need to be at this table for the discussion, I'd like to get it on their radar, and we want to make sure that they're all available, because in order to make intelligent decisions, we need to have those people and a chance for them to get their numbers together. So at this point, we've discussed it. Why don't we have Administrator Kelly reach out to those departments and find out their availability and bring it back for next week, and we can make a discussion at that point.
Yeah.
And not only that, but then you'll have a better idea too on what's all stacked on the workshop, or if that's too soon for them to get their numbers together. Sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Advisory committee, advisory board updates. Commissioner Ketchmark.
All right, we're going back for 2 weeks here, I believe, because we had the workshop. So one was the Highway 12 coalition meeting, and just a reminder, it'll be a detour for a full closure of Highway 12 between May and September in the area of Maple Plain. The detour is going to be south of Highway 12 from County 6 and Highway 12 and running back towards Maple Plain. And they do a good job with signage, and people will be able to figure their way around. We had a Farm Bureau fundraiser for food shelves at the Cub Foods in Buffalo, and it basically looked like organized looting because we're with masks and we're gathering up as many groceries as we can for the food shelves up and down the aisle. So it was Commissioner Vetch, Commissioner Wetter, and I against the state representatives, and we had $1,630 worth of food and 934 pounds. We beat the other group, and all the food went to Wright County Community Action and the food shelf in Rockford. So they felt that was a success. We had a solar meeting. We're working on proposals for the assurity deposits, basically for upfront when the companies want to apply for the permit for a solar farm, so that's still in the works. I was at Woodland Township's annual meeting. Nothing really of interest there was brought up. Went to Minnesota Rural Counties. That was a 3-hour meeting yesterday. They always cover a lot of things. As far as clean car, there's 12 counties that have signed that resolution that we were talking about the other day, and 7 have chose to adopt a letter to send. One interesting bill that's coming up, and that's not going to affect us now, but county engineers by statute have to live in the county they work in, and there's a proposed bill to change that for more candidates that you can look at to fill these positions in some of the, especially the rural counties where there's less candidates to pick from.
You're saying the highway engineer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the state statute?
Yes, that's probably seldom looked at or reviewed when you,
Yeah.
especially when you have longevity and people holding the spot for a long time, but that was something of interest, but.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those 70-year-old statutes or even older, yeah.
That we didn't know about.
Other than that, today, right after this, I'm going to meet with the DNR as just kind of an intro to the DNR personnel that we'll be working with, including Grant and a couple others, so I can meet them and share a little on philosophy with that. So,
Good luck on that.
well,
My personal opinion.
there are certain people's names that I won't mention, and that's all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Newsom.
Okay, I was at the Buffalo Safe Schools meeting, and They were glad to welcome the kids back to school because they've had to do a lot of kind of more reaching out to these kids that are falling kind of between the cracks with them not being in school. I was at the workforce meeting, Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Joint Powers Board. We welcomed 2 new commissioners to our board, and the workforce, Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards, is a national model. It continues to be a national model in innovation and employment training. So we have 16 local employer-led workforce development boards in conjunction with our local elected officials for setting policies and priorities, et cetera. Our unemployment rate in Wright County is just slightly below the average in Minnesota. The state of Minnesota is 4.6%. In Wright County, we are at 4.4% unemployment. Some of the things that happened is people that were laid off during the pandemic, the tendency was that more men returned to the workforce after than women. That's just a point of interest. And also a partial recovery with the older workers, 55 and older nationally. After that partial recovery between May and August, their long-term employment fell to its lowest point. So about 1.1 million older workers left the workforce between August and January. So we'll see how this all shakes out as things get more back to normal. I met with the Safe Communities of Wright County and talked about the fact that speed and distracted drivers are, it continues to be a problem. Speed has gotten to be more of a problem. They are doing the April statewide distracted driving enforcement is going to be between the 5th and the 30th. And also the Just Drive event is on April 24th from 9 a.m. to noon, and that's in Monticello. It's free to the public. It's at the Monticello Middle School. This is, I think, 6 years. It's a family event. So anyone that can make out for that, please do. We talked about the grants, the federal safety grants for some of our projects in Wright County, and one is for the roundabout on 35 and Daig Avenue in Buffalo by the high school. So that will be in 2022. State Patrol with them being diverted to different areas because of things going on in the metro. They don't have enough staff essentially. And also I was at the Public Works Labor Management meeting. Parks, they said they've rebuilt 100 picnic tables this year, and the new cabinets in Nye Park, and also they had, of course, we've talked about the fact that we have such high park and trail use now. They started their Department of Transportation inspections. They are, busy moving their message boards depending on what's going on, and Steve Meyer complimented the staff at the drive-through vaccine clinic. They were giving 600 vaccines that day. So they have been busy, and it's been a real fine facility to be able to bring people into the garage, and they don't have to leave their cars, and they get vaccinated. And so anyway, and then I had a couple of other meetings with people, but nothing advisory. So that's it.
All right. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. In the interest of time, I'm not going to spend a whole lot on things. Mental health task force, we met on the 9th. And mental health is still a huge issue in the county and in the state for that matter. A lack of beds, a lack of people with no insurance to get help. And I know about this firsthand because my son-in-law's niece, who was 13, just committed suicide last week.
Oh, no.
So hopefully the legislators will continue to work on this sort of thing to get those beds available for those people that need them, to get funding so that these people, whether they're on Medicare, Medicaid, or have no insurance whatsoever, are able to get the additional help they need. It's terrible to see a 13-year-old whose whole life is in front of them to do something like this. And parks, we met last Monday, or on the 8th. Good discussions about what's going on in the parks and how busy they are and how good the campground. Good. We're filling up, and I don't know if you also read that we now had, I don't know if they're still open, but there was an additional 15 with governors changing. There was additional 15 campsites that were put out available for the remainder of the summer. So looking forward to having that sort of information out there. And just because of time, I just want to wish everybody St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, and to everybody stay sober, stay home.
We can't, we have Mayor's
Drink and
Association.
Yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be making that one tomorrow.
those wild mayors, right? Blame it on them.
So, Commissioner Ketchmer covered the solar group really well, so I won't have to recap on that. I've had multiple meetings with the executive committee for CMRP as we're working on trying to wrap our second round of engagements up, as well as we're working on putting together a workshop at the end of this month to have discussions about next steps and where we're at in trying to post this pandemic, because we're hoping to have this one to be our first in-person or all in-person type function to try and get people back connected and have that level of discussion that you have in person that doesn't necessarily take place when it is virtual.
Yep.
Then we are also, I had this last week, sorry, look at the other ones here. Oh, we had our meeting yesterday with interviewing attorneys, as we're very trailblazer, as we're entertaining, looking at opening up our contract with the law firms for Trailblazer and looking at other law firms to see if that is of interest of the board. So more to come forward with that. So I guess with that, that's all. I'll keep it short.
One thing I forgot to add, next week on Tuesday, there'll be information on the agenda regarding the county gravel tax. State mandated. I've been getting a lot of letters and information on it. Just wanted to let everybody know. The attorneys will bring forward something regarding a statute, something for our local to be able to put bites in, this sort of thing, and how we plan on doing it. Bob has some letters from other counties, so it's not Wright County that's just Wright County that's having this issue. It's a lot of other counties. So just so that you're aware of that, I'll be here next week. Commissioner Whiter.
Oh, yeah, it was a busy time for me. March 2nd, we had the Lake Charlotte and Lake Martha Subordinate Sewer District meeting. Nothing really got decided. There's a question of what to do with, they're all being assessed $3,000. And that more than covers what the deficit is. And so what should they do with it? Should it go back to the people? Should put it in a fund for problems? Should it be kept in the county? Should it be kept in St. Michael? Nobody really knows. there's a real problem down there as a naming of a contact person. It seems like nobody wants to put their name out there and actually take control over everything.
Maybe a county commissioner that's in that area should take over.
Yeah. Well, and Steve Bott is the contact person in St. Michael. Well, I've already looked at it quite a bit, but, okay. Then March 3rd was the North Fork One Watershed, One Plan policy meeting. And as you know, the Wright SWCD is the grant holder of that money. So there the officers were chosen, and there was a big discussion because their bylaws state that anything over $50,000 in a project has to go before this board to be approved before it goes on any further. Well, it's a timing issue because this board only meets, well, maybe every 4 months or something like that. So that could make it so that projects wouldn't actually be done. So what I saw, and that was my first meeting with that group, what I saw was a lot of people that didn't want to give up control of the money. So the thing is, it's already seen by LGUs. First, wherever the project was, that has to go before them, and then the final one would be before our Wright County SWCD. So they reviewed the many programs to help seniors, and then we listened to a very long presentation on accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. And what those are small homes or apartments that are either part of the landowners or maybe a separate individual detached unit. And this would be for someone 50 or over that would need maybe care or housing for a relative or friend, could be a guest house, or for maybe even a caregiver of a place for the caregiver to live for the landowner. Also, it could become income in renting that out. And so, of course, that would have to go through planning and zoning, and I don't know if our planning and zoning has any thought of ever doing that. I think a lot of them already are doing it, but we aren't aware of what's going on in that circumstance. Then March 5th, Commissioner Catchmark already talked about the Farm Bureau and Cub shopping spree, so I'll skip over that. March 8th was the Wright SWCD. Bill Deluge was sworn in to replace me on the board, and they talked about hiring someone to update their website. And then, of course, Alicia was here and already discussed the separation of the two areas for the One Watershed, One Plan. Then they were also looked at the association's legislative platform, and they were going to meet with the legislators virtually on March 18th. And March 9th, we had, as Commissioner DeLine said, we listened to the presentation from Wright County Community Action on North Risk Partners, and that's an HR and benefits agency that they were going to switch to. Then also they went through the WIC contract, and we already looked at that. So that's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Administrator Kelly.
Okay.
I'll be brief. with a lot going on both at the federal and the state level, of course, in legislative session. Been trying to keep tabs on that. Had 4 calls over the last 2 weeks, both 2 for the state, through the Association of County Administrators and AMC on what's going through at the legislature. A few interesting things we're keeping tabs on, see if that goes forward. Did have the opportunity to touch base with Gary over at Trailblazer regarding their bus extension project, which is basically complete other than 1 lift of pavement. So we're working on closing out the finances on that project and our involvement in it. So with the governor's changing, or the changing of the dials, if you will, working on some planning and guidance going forward in the coming months here as more folks get vaccinated. And as vaccines are available, started working on an employee sign up to be able to receive that vaccine as well. So a lot going on with that, plus kind of the follow-up on EDA from our meeting the prior week. Some of the logistics on that, making sure everybody's good for presentations, as well as ongoing work with the ERP project that we kind of discussed earlier too. So very high level. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Anything else to come before the board? If not, we are adjourned at 11:01.